What's going on, world? Florida Banks over here. Some pretty sad news. I'm pretty sad about it myself. Um, it's one of those things where I just don't understand life and what people go through in life and how people handle their personal stress in life, their goals. They can't reach goals. Oh man, like it's funny the way the world works sometimes. I was trying to like look up something, and it's so funny like when you're dealing with people, and then like people don't have a certain not knowledge of history, and they have to have proof. And so you're sitting there looking for proof, and you're like, damn, I can't sit there and find proof of this shit. And then when you go and you find something else, and it's something a little bit more devastating, that shit sucks. 7 hours ago. Let's see. 7 hours ago. That will probably be after. For me, it will be 7 hours ago. Well, this is where I got the news. I don't know when it happened. I might have to look into it, but this right here is for all my Power Ranger fans. Whether you were a fan of it in the beginning, whether you're a fan of it today, whether you're a fan of it once upon a time, or at least like you peeped it out. But and what sucks is when you have people, genuine good people like Jason David Frank. I never personally met him, but I know that a lot of times the price of fame can sometimes get the best of you. And no matter how hard you try, and you keep going for the fans, and you keep going, and you keep going, and going, and going, and going, and you realize that the only way to generate new fans from old material is if people like myself, a fan, were to pass that stuff down to the youth, my child, and they can carry on that legacy of what I love the most of, and that's not really fair to her, because my heroes aren't necessarily my parents' heroes, and my parents' heroes may not necessarily be their parents' heroes. So why should my daughter's heroes be my heroes? And that's kind of a problem with a lot of my heroes, especially when you're, I don't want to call him a one-trick pony, but that's kind of what the industry painted him as. I mean, he's a martial artist, I think he's a world martial arts champion. Let me actually go through his accolades real quick. Guy wasn't no joke. I mean, I think his acting isn't like. I mean, I was watching a lot of. Let me use his real name. I watched a lot of his like a lot of old. I will go back and I will watch old Power Ranger episodes, and I could tell like when he came in, he wasn't really big on acting. I don't want to say big on it, but he wasn't. He wasn't. He didn't. He wasn't those basically crafted to be an Academy Award winning actor. But personally, but honestly, he really carried that show. Like, I don't know what it is about him. Maybe it's the long swaggy hair. People like the long swag. And then I think that kind of led to him growing it out. People like white males kicking ass with long hair. Long hair was really the times in the 90s. And so to have someone like Jason David Frank grow out his hair, he's just kicking putties, asses with this sway hair that sways here, that sways there. And he had a bit of a sex appeal, like I know a lot of fans clamoring for Tommy to romance Kimberly, and then once Kimberly was out, and it was Catherine, and then he tried to romance Catherine, and then it like honestly, like you can tell like the show as it started to become more and more of like what can we honestly do to keep things spicy, because they only work. The whole idea of Power Rangers is basically taking old Japanese footage of an old show and revamping it with newer stories, with while intermixing new production with old production. And so I think over time, like they try to work on their acting skills, and so they try to incorporate drama. And so you had like two girls fighting over a guy, things like that. And especially with a lot of the actors, they feel like they kind of become a one-trick pony. And then when you have these agents that tell you, like, yeah, you know, you're gonna be a one-trick pony for the rest of your life. You know, that's all people are gonna see you as is this Power Ranger. You know, you need to go branch out. And for some, you know, they felt like you can take this franchise and you can kind of go beyond, and you can go beyond, and you can take it to the next level. Let me put the timer on real quick. Go to the next level with your acting, but what happens is that you kind of become, you kind of fall into this depression of being the same person or the same type of person for your entire career. Like Jaleel White, no matter how much, you know, he can be an amazing and talented actor, he's always going to be stuck in that swimming pool of Steve Urkel. And then when people bring him onto these cons, these conventions, they have to, you know, make sure that he comes in and he represents Steve Urkel. And maybe for the fans, that's just pure nostalgia. Oh man, yeah, I remember you, Steve Urkel. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure for guys like Jaleel, you know, it holds you back. And it's just like, damn, you know, that's all I'm going to be known as. And then you may embrace it, or it can drive you mad. Because now you have to basically incorporate your entire career in your life around a character or a certain gimmick. And when it gets played out, like, I wouldn't say Power Rangers is played out. Power Rangers is not played out. There's still a lot of people that like Power Rangers. Still a lot of children that like Power Rangers. But when it starts to get played out, the whole team factor thing, like, it was really big. Like, kind of going from the 80s into the 90s, the team factors it was really getting big in the 90s, the team factors. But like once team factors stopped becoming a thing, a major thing, that, you know, shows like Power Rangers just kind of like became kind of like cult favorites. So like if, you know, you see it on TV, maybe your parents were a fan of it, you might be a fan of it too. You might watch the new Power Ranger, Dino, Fury, Ninja, Storm, Rescue, whatever. I'm not really big on those shows, but, you know, to carry on that legacy, you know, you have to have like, you know, a want for it. And so I just think that it's just sad when someone like Jason David Frank, no matter where he goes, he's always going to remind you as a Green Ranger. And maybe, I'm going to look at his, I didn't see his accolades. I'm going to look it up real quick. So he's eighth Dan black belt in Shotokan Karate. Oh, Shotokan. I always do that. Shokoten. I've done that like for so long. Shotokan. So he's an eighth Dan black belt in Shotokan Karate. He's a black belt in Wado Ryu Karate. He's a black belt in Taekwondo. He's a black belt in Judo. not to confuse it with jiu-jitsu. But he is a purple belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he's an adjunct degree. He has an adjunct degree in Muay Thai, so he's well versatile. Um, and what else is cool too is that he's very versatile when it comes to like trying to integrate a lot of his skill into cage fighting, and he actually got into cage fighting. I think he might have gotten. I think he might have stepped in the ropes too, but I know he wanted to get big. He wanted to sign UFC, and so he got into some amateur fights and try to build up his rank. But I guess especially trying to get into UFC, which is where the money pays. Trying to be a fighter while at the same time trying to represent who you are and what you were is very hard, and especially in a sport where something is so you're trying to take your fictional character and present it as the real deal. And if someone doesn't see you as a profitable fighter and you go in and you lose, the company loses money. You win, lose, or draw, you get bank. You may not get paid again, but you get bank. And I know for a fact that like he's tried his hard to expand like in other realms. I think he's even tried to do work in he tried to get WWE work. He wanted to work WWE. But especially like when you were the man, like it happens a lot when you're the man. When you were the man, and you may be the man in your own world, but when you feel like you were the man and all of it's gone and all you have is who you were and you just living off of that, sometimes it's just really, really hard. Really, really hard to basically stay happy and stay relevant and to get paid and to maintain and this and that. It's really hard. And then like you want to go to these conventions, you want to go to these cons, but then like these cons aren't really paying, so then you're taking the trip to go and do these things, and you're not really being compensated for everything. You compensated for some, but then like you still gotta eat, you still gotta shop, you still gotta do all this other stuff. And you know that if you do any of those things, you're gonna eventually cash yourself out, and then you're gonna realize, damn, I went to this con, I met so many amazing people, but I made no money. I barely made any money. Like I barely taken home any money. And I think that gets like that a lot of times. And you try to fill these buildings, you try to fill these giant buildings. I went to the San Diego Comic Con several years ago, thanks to my homie. And that thing is huge. And then try to fill that whole entire building, and then try to get other people in other sections. Try to keep every area proactive, with some vendor. Those things, it gets huge, and then a lot of them is filled with hopefuls. So basically, you go to these events in hopes of selling your comics. And that's basically the idea of Comic-Con, to go and sell your comics, and sell your ideas. It's crazy because I'm not gonna lie, I've always wanted to be a Power Ranger. And what's even crazier was that like I actually had a trilogy movies in my head which was basically I was going to redesign the Power Rangers. I was going to redesign the Power Rangers to make it more of like basically explaining why there's so many different Power Rangers and the importance of each and every different Power Ranger, and why, like, you can have shows like, Red Everything, and you have every Red Ranger from every show, from every different variation of Power Rangers, and and how they can all come together and work together, and then do have certain aspects and abilities to, even the video game. Like when I played the video game recently, the story mode for that, um, you know, it basically is another reason why you try to do what you can to get those rangers, to figure out how to get those rangers together, and why some rangers are more important than other rangers, and why some rangers have more better abilities than other rangers, and blah 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 blah. And in the sense, since he passed, I might as well say this. And I had a lot of ideas. This is one of them. Basically, he was going to be the one to introduce the movie. He was going to be the one that gets people to draw into the movie. Like, okay, Jason David Frank's in it. That means it's a legit movie. And basically what it is that he basically found a new power source that create new Rangers. He's found a new variation of new version of Zord. I don't want to say Zordon himself, but basically the guy that controls the Rangers. So he basically he found a new one, and then and he's supposed to be like over top tier, like over like all the other ones like Zordon and stuff, and then basically gave him some like power coin. I'll just say power coins for now, because I don't have full details of like how they're gonna transform. I just know that they basically they have a way of transforming. They have power sources to transform. So obviously Tommy, being the original Red Ranger, you know, well, being a Red Ranger, I should say, was going to come in as the original Red Ranger. Now, backstory, out like this is when I was like, man, I should really like look into martial arts. I would love to look into martial arts and actually like kind of like and learn how to incorporate them in the movies and become like like a stunt actor or a fight coordinator and coordinate fight scenes. And so I wanted to get into martial arts, and I wanted basically to be a character where I was inspired originally by the Green Ranger. Now, at the time, like when you kind of like look at the time frames, if you look at every Ranger, basically I represent the guy that was inspired by the Power Rangers to go out and be a Power Ranger. And so when I was originally saved by the Green Ranger, because the Green Ranger, I mean, you don't normally see it, but normally he stands over his Dragon Zord. Like in the Japanese version, he normally stands over his Dragon Zord. It's rare that he needs to go inside of it, because the Dragon Zord, you can kind of control it from a remote area. And so I think during the Dragon Zord fight, my building was being Angel Grove. Obviously, I live in Angel Grove, and a lot of buildings get terrorized all the time. I never understood how Angel Grove has so much money to rebuild every time Rita fucks up the city. But basically during the Dragon Zord fight, one of my buildings get terrorized. I think I fall. I want to say I fall on my doom, and then the Green Ranger eventually saved me. Either that, or like I was down on the bottom level, and the rubble was going to crush me, and then he eventually saved me. So I was originally inspired by the Green Ranger, my character. And so when it came to picking Rangers, he's saying he has to do the scouting, because I think he's been like 6 different Rangers, and so he's sitting there doing the scouting, and as he's scouting, obviously he picks me because I ended up like becoming his I ended up becoming his mentee, and he ended up teaching me karate and stuff like that. He entered me in tournaments, and ended up entering this one tournament with who will eventually become a rival / teammate. It's basically another bastard. I don't want to call him a bastard, but that's basically kind of what he is. He's a bastard child who uses fighting as a way of surviving. Like he steals. Sometimes he street fights. He basically has to, he entered a tournament to win the prize money and to like stay afloat in Angel Grove. And I want to say she stole a power morpher from me. I want to say that. Like, he ended up taking my bag and had a power morpher. And then eventually once we get into an unsanctioned fight, and I realized like he's a much different animal than a disciplined fighter. He's a much different animal as a street fighter than a disciplined fighter. And so, we ended up fighting to a draw before we um, eventually get stopped by Tommy, who caught up with us, and then he ran away. But I ended up getting my bag back and my morpher. I can't remember how he joins the team, but when we're discussing like recruiting, he comes to mind. At first, I reject it, but then knowing that even though I beat him in a tournament in the unsanctioned fight, he was practically my equal. I figured it would be a good idea, and so we end up becoming three, and now we're three Rangers. And there's such thing as three Rangers because there are shows that have only three Rangers, and the whole point of the movie is to build the Power Rangers, and so it takes two movies to eventually complete the Rangers because by the time the evildoers, that's the original name for them, they they come to Earth to like war, and obviously the government's involved. They try to send their best, but only the Rangers really could stop them as a whole. But once we rage in a battle, there's a scene where there's basically a Ranger Slayer, which is basically this sword. It's similar to the one that Tommy had originally in the Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, when he had two swords, like the Dragon Dagger and that Sword Slayer. I don't know the proper name for it, but that's all I know. And when he when eventually got slashed, because that's the thing, because like the armor in the suits prevent penetration, and so when he was able to impale Tommy, and he dies in my arms, his one dying wish was for me to take the mantle of the Red Ranger because you see the vision, the vision, and I know I trust you, and I trust you with the vision, and so this is the first time a Black Ranger is the leader since I want to say Power Rangers Turbo. I think that's the first time Power Rangers Turbo, but yeah. So when I become the original Red Ranger, that's when I hit the recruiting heavy. But because we were in the battlefield and the enemies retreat, and not everybody's keen on the Power Rangers. That's another thing I want to incorporate, like that. Not everybody is for the Power Rangers. In fact, I think there was a form of government that kind of banished the Power Rangers, and that's when they kind of resurfaced. And so when cities were destroyed, people would die, someone had to take responsibility. So it ended up being the Power Rangers because they couldn't take the evil villains, and so they accused the Power Rangers, kind of like Superman. And so you know the second movie was spent most. Two movies are spent mostly on trial. We going back and forth to trial and trying to basically recruit the Rangers, and then we recruit them, but then we end up picking up another Ranger, like an evil Ranger, and then we end up picking a Guardian Ranger, the sixth Ranger, the sixth Special Ranger, like the White Ranger was before he became their team leader. But yeah, like I had this whole story like planned out, But I didn't want. I knew it wasn't gonna see the light of day. Because then then eventually they ended up remaking Power Rangers into a movie, and I mean, I didn't watch it. I heard that I actually enjoy it. But I mean, me being an original Power Ranger fan and having the original Power Rangers, like the original incarnation of the Power Rangers, to have them in the movie as cameo. I even had this whole thing figured out too. Like, I even had this Hall of Fame ceremony, like towards the end. Once everything was good, the world assist Power Rangers, and then say that one false move, and you're full accountability. You're fully accountable. We have a whole league of Rangers. There's different Rangers for different scenarios. We don't try to step on the police's shoes. We don't try to step on the firemen's shoes. We don't try to step on anybody's shoes unless it's something that was done in outer space that basically, is beyond human abilities. And so we eventually had this League of Rangers that have for different scenarios, and that's what it was going to leak into, like having different Ranger shows. So you can have the Wildlife Rangers over here, Aqua Rangers over there, Space Rangers in space, and so forth. And then we had this we had this big Hall of Justice kind of deal. We had this Hall of Fame where we have the original, because eventually the Hall of Fame was gonna put all the I'm not to put all the Rangers, but honestly, yeah, is eventually meant to recognize all the Rangers of the past and give them a space in the Hall of Fame for people to kind of like visit and be like, oh yeah, it's the Ranger Hall of Fame. This Tommy Oliver and Billy Gladstone and Crystal Hart, and not Crystal Hart, Kimberly Hart, so forth. And then what was ill for the Hall of Fame ceremony, to induct Trini in the Hall of Fame. I was gonna have basically. I'm not gonna incorporate that Trini got into a car accident and died, even though that's what she did. That's what happened, basically. She was rushing to get to a wedding, and she was running late, and she ended up getting into a nasty car crash that ended up ejecting her out of the car. But basically, she gone and lived her life. She had a child. She passed away. No, the Trini passed away, not the child. The child will be the one representing Trini for the Hall of Fame, and so it is cool. You have like everybody in suits. You have Tommy. Actually, Tommy would be dead, unfortunately. I mean, I could still. That wouldn't be right because he's one to be in the film. But basically, you have Tommy, there with his mural to represent him. And you have Trini with her mural, but she will still be represented by her daughter. And then you have I'll bring back all the cast members, and then they kind of relive themselves in suits one more time, as they like take their places in the Hall of Fame. And then once the show's kind of progressed, afterwards, you get all the other, and then they want to do another Hall of Fame ceremony. We do the next batch of, the next batch of Rangers, and the next batch of Rangers, and it'll incorporate the storyline too. It wouldn't just get thrown together like that. Maybe, we have like they have like the new set of Rangers, mix it up with like the Zeo, maybe the Zeo Rangers, probably the Turbo Rangers, because that's when his characters really kind of evolved. Well, no, because then you still have Aisha, you still have Tanya, you still have some of the others. I will still recognize them as well. They'll still get recognized and go into the Hall of Fame. But yeah, it'll probably be Zeo Rangers, because then I can still incorporate. Because then I can incorporate Adam, Rocky, Catherine, and Tanya. they'll be, and then you can kind of put them in the show, like, oh yeah, one more for the road, da 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 da, and then, but that was one of my ideas for a Power Ranger movie before the Power Ranger movie came out. Power Ranger movie came out, it was kind of like it was one and the same with the series, but it's a movie twist and there's movie effects and this and that. But as far as like an actual like new movie, like this was like a legit new movie. This was like a legit like new story that kind of progresses forward a little bit more violent. And I was inspired by that violent Power Ranger sketch where all the Rangers get murked off. But I don't like how like real to life it is. The government actually gunning down the Rangers and shit. And it's weird. And I think like another Ranger like blew up in an explosion. It was just weird. And it was just like way too violent. Like yeah, maybe getting stabbed through the suit. Like oh shit, there's blood. Wait, there's blood. And so. But I mean, whether it's blood, I don't think it will be blood because unless like it shows like blood coming out of his lips, for the kids. But that's just one of the things with being a teen, like a star for kids shows. And this was something that I was talking about with the homie, with my friend, about the Disney, like places like the Disney Channel, where like they had them under like these strict like contracts, where basically they had to be goody two shoe kids, even though they've grown up into being adults, and no matter what you do, what others do for you may not be right, and you find yourself in a position where like now you gotta like be a goody two shoe person before your career is over because you got caught adulting or you got caught being an adult when you're supposed to be a child. And that's kind of what's wrong with a lot of corporations these days is that they think that they can just have children forever, and you psychologically you can't. Children are like they grow up a lot faster than adults. And adults take forever to just grow old. Kids take little to no time to grow up, and so you're gonna have like a 4-year lifespan, 5-year lifespan max when it comes to like shows like Power Rangers. And then like you get to the new series and it's just like, it's not flowing really well. And then you have new cast members and you're like, I kind of miss the old members. And you just, and then they're not the same. The character's not the same. That's just them hacking some of the older fans just to keep some of the diehard fans, just to draw some of the new fans, because they don't want a show like that to get popular, because then when it gets big, when it blows up, when it becomes a phenomenon again, now you have to pay the actors more than what you probably want to for just doing bits and skits, because they already have the other footage. They already have the footage of all the action, so they don't need action footage from the Rangers. They just need action footage from the humans, and they just need dialogue and drama. They need to build drama. And so, but tough break, man. And it's crazy because like I'm in Twitter prison and I found out on Twitter. That's where I always find out my sad news. But this one was really, really sad. Cause this like like it's one of those things where like if you follow a person, like you kind of have an idea of like, how he died. And what sucks is that you have someone who's been the same guy forever hasn't really evolved. And I mean, he'll change, but he won't really evolve like into something better. He'll just stay the same. He'll just have a different shade, different color, different look, different hairstyle, whatever. But you're still the same guy. And for some, like, it might be a big deal, but for others, it's like, well, it's still not worth paying what you're worth. And especially when you're trying to live in today's environment, I see that he has another project going on too. I'm looking on Wikipedia. Actually, I was looking, scrolling through Wikipedia, not Wikipedia, Twitter, and I seen that he was earning like oh wait, or was it Wikipedia? No, it was that was definitely Twitter, and it was saying that he was starting a new project, and I was like, okay, and I'm reading the article right now, and it said the first opening lines is basically the film Legend of the White Dragon launched on Kickstarter in 2020. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, oh shit. Because as someone that's used Kickstarter before, I know how that shit works. And I'm going to tell you right now. And this is what I try to tell my friends when we wanted to start that one project. I told them, I'm like, look, if we're going to do it through Kickstarter, actually, I don't think I told them this, but I basically was trying to imply this. I was basically trying to get them prepared, but they wasn't listening to me. I told them, if you wanted to launch Kickstarter, you gotta have financial backings already. Like, people gotta see there's money in this project. They can't just see a project being built from scratch and then it's just half-ass marketing and promoting and yeah, people don't want to see that because people don't have money to waste, and they have money sit there and just wait and wait and wait. Um, and it seemed like I think they reached their deadline. Oh wow, it's interesting because I'm reading. It said that the film is done, so they got the Kickstarter. They got backers, which is what you do. You get backers behind it. You see Time Force. I don't know what Time Force is. Mega Force. See, I don't know what Mega Force is. But you get backers behind a project so you can boost the money. And then when you boost the money, you show people that people are looking into your projects. And when you go into it, that's when people pitch in there like twos and fives. And then at first it won't start adding up, but then like when more people start to do that, and more people, then it'll start to add up. But you want serious backers behind these projects because like Kickstarter, like GoFundMe is different because you can keep a little bit of the money. You just got to get taxed by GoFundMe. But with Kickstarter, you don't keep the money. So like whatever money gets put in gets given back if you don't get a full commitment. And interesting. Um, so it looked like he had projects going on. It seemed like he had projects going on, but it's like you can just tell like he wants to be more than just the Green Ranger. And when people want to hire you just for to be the Tommy Oliver, and then you have this other stuff, and people are not getting behind it, and then and then you need more money for this, and you need more money for that, and because things have gotten expensive over time. That's another thing too, especially with film. A lot of film takes forever. A lot of film takes a long time. People think that you can shoot something. You can shoot 2 films and then break it into 2 movies if it works out. But films take a long time, especially when you're building production. Like, people don't look and count production and accountability. It's legit work. It's serious business, Trust me, I dabbled in that shit. That shit ain't easy at all. But man, it sucks to hear that he commit suicide of all things. But you kind of had a feeling if you hear someone that looks like healthy as a bone is